Welcome to the Irie Myrie and Friends show. As we close out week number 12 in the year 2024, we take a look at the week that was. Today, Sunday, March 2024, is a most significant day in the Christian calendar. It is recognized as Palm Sunday, whereby Jesus started his journey to Jerusalem. This week in the Christian community, it is considered Holy Week, whereby it is said Christ was crucified 5 days after he started his journey and resurrected triumphantly 2 days after his crucifixion. Jamaicans who embrace the Christian faith celebrate these activities. Hence, they refer to the week as Holy Week. Today's show, we will take a look at the week that was. Joining me is my producer, Tony Simmet, veteran journalist, Mr. Hilton Dennis, former JTA president, Mr. Owen Speed, regular contributor Hilby and Charlie, Christopher French, and media practitioner Anthony Fisher. We thank our guests and our viewers and listeners. The Irie Myrie and Friends show is being streamed via various platforms. Those platforms are YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Good evening and welcome to the Irie Myrie and Friends show. I'm your host, Colin Myrie. My co-host, Ralston Chamberlain, is off this week. So as I said, I have sitting in with me, my producer, Mr. Tony Simmet, making a rare appearance. Lots have been happening in the news this week. The budget debates have ended, but not before the JLP staged a walkout on the leader of the opposition. The Prime Minister has made several promises in his presentation. Minister of Finance Nigel Clark, Shadow Finance spokesperson MP Julian Robinson, Opposition Leader Mark Golding, and Prime Minister Andrew Holness also had a good presentation. Another big story is the changing of the guards. Major General Anthony Anderson passing on the leadership baton of the JCF to now Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake. The return of a report by the Speaker of the House, Juliet Holness, to the Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis, which she said will be resent tomorrow. The census whereby we spent billions of dollars, and it was not done properly. And not to be left out of the mix is the sporting events, KC One Boy Champs and Edwin Allen, the girls. We also see Leon Bailey making some damning claims against the Jamaica Football Federation. All this and more will be discussed by our guests. So let me start with one of the most burning topics, the budget debate. Give me a reaction to the Prime Minister's presentation. I'll start with you, Mr. Hilton Dennis. You're muted. You're muted, Mr. Dennis.
So I'm sorry about that. I thought you controlled the mic. Thanks for having me. Good night, everyone. There is a presentation I want to go. Well, I hold no brief for either side, for the opposition or the government, the party in power. The budget debate is an occasion on which an accounting is given to the nation, to taxpayers, of how their money is spent or allocated to be spent. Okay? I've heard some disturbing things during the period that the budget debate has been, in progress. I've heard that the national debt is $2.2 trillion, and I'm surprised because of the JDX NDX interest haircut process, which occurred in 2013, thereabout in that period. It's already a decade since we have had that. We've had criticisms Noted economists like Ralston Hyman um, has been critical of the pace of debt repayment, that it is too accelerated and therefore negating the government's capability to spend more on capital projects that are very necessary. There is no equity, for example, in the funding of schools, and education is very important. All right. So we are still neglecting the capital needs of schools. We have heard that 4 new hospitals are to be built in this budget year. Or allocations have been made. They're not going to be completed in a calendar year, but allocations have been made unprecedented to build 4 new hospitals. The needs, the priorities, the basic needs and priorities of people, right, have always been put on the back burner. You have a local government election that just occurred, and they were talking about national issues that don't relate to the very basic issues of people in the local communities, right? So the regard for health and education, transportation, the road network, and so on, right? Those things are not prioritized the way it should be. So when you get the debt still being a strangulating 2.2 trillion, when you get only 2% of the budget being allocated for capital expenditure, and then you come, and you talk little things, little fluff things like, okay, we're raising minimum wage again. We bypassed the minimum wage commission that took forever to deliberate on purpose, and then come up with a very minuscule increase. But we bypassed that, and we're increasing minimum wage only a year after there was an increase, and the private sector applauds it, which is unprecedented also, right? From 13,000 to 15,000. Then you say that NHT is going to build, what was it, 5,000 or 15,000? Sorry that I missed that figure. New homes, right? Or be financing somewhere in that order. Then you talk about a home for $13 million, but it takes an annual salary of 3.5 million to afford a mortgage for 13 million, right? And the majority of the employed labor force don't earn anything near that. The minimum wage increase takes the annual salary of a minimum wage earner to $720,000. So if you need 3.5 million to afford a 13 million house, what will $720,000 buy? They said they're going to give them a grant of 3.5 million on top of whatever else they would have qualified for. They qualify for nothing else. So that $3.5 million they might never be able to access, because they can't come into you and say, we want the regular allocation, whether it is $7 or $9 million, plus this grant of 3 point some, unless they're joining up, right? 3 or 4 persons joining up together to make a purchase of a home, right? So the little things that are announced, the tax threshold is increased to 1.7 million. Little things like that are announced, and the bigger things are ignored as well. All right. But the presentations were marred by the leaders, the representatives, the elected legislators continuing to believe it is their parliament. It is their personal business that they go there to conduct, not the people's business. And so any little personal petty peeve that they have, right, where a man can cuss over another man's wife being the speaker while he's the prime minister, not bearing into account our antecedent of 2 cousins, right, going to England to receive an order of the British Parliament, an act of the British Parliament that they come back and present to the people of the country as its constitution, right? And that sort of incestuous relationship that's part of our heritage. But we talk about nepotism and cronyism, and we detract from the important business of accounting for the spending of taxpayers' money. So the budget presentation this year lost its dignity on account of those factors. All right, that's my opening remark.
Mr. Speed, you're
Oh yes, I am on. Good evening, everybody. And boy, I tell you, just listening to the opening commentator, you know, you could almost just pack up and just decide
No,
that
no.
we could just end the program right there because you hit the nails, all the nails are hit firmly and squarely on the head. And no pun intended here because I'm not talking about any symbol of supremacy or any kind of symbol related to any political party tonight. But the budget presentations, I listened to them on and off, to be honest with you, because I couldn't be there to follow them. And I have a long day at work, long days at work, so I couldn't follow them minute by minute kind of thing. But when it comes on to the Prime Minister's presentation, I was anticipating some more creative things coming out. The Minister of Finance as well. I was anticipating some more creative options coming out of those presentations. One, I know that our Jamaican people, the workers of the country, they one of the things that is a big push factor with people migrating, and we have to really nip that in the bud too, because we're having a serious not only brain drain, but there are people who are unskilled too, who are just getting up and leaving the country. Just like that, because they are seeking betterment for themselves and their families. And I think something has to be done to help to keep some of those people there, because some of them are in their productive years. Many of them, in fact, are in their productive years. And when you look at the cadre of people just migrating, they are trying to beat the borders and to get from one place to another in the United States and elsewhere, because it's not just here, people trying to go to all other kinds of countries. I think that if people are satisfied that the basic needs are being taken care of, if people are satisfied that food prices, for example, are not so high, if people are satisfied that they can own a piece of the rock. And so you talked about the whole thing of building houses and how much it will take to really get one, to hold down on one of those units that the NHT will make and are promising to make. I think a more creative idea would be to maybe go back to somewhere in the 70s where they used to cut up the land and lease lands and all this kind of thing, because the people in Jamaica are creative, and if they get land, I'm certain that they will start somewhere, start some structure on them, on the bits and pieces of land. And so I would anticipate that some of that would have come out, because that's a push factor for many people. Can't get house to live in, can't get land, the water, all of those things, they can't get employment. And so these are some of the issues, some of the things that I would have anticipated would have come out. But marred again by that walkout, and as you just quite rightly said, that they're operating as if the people's business, put on the back burner. And in a local government election, just coming out of a local government election, I hope that they will settle quickly, because we have gone now a month almost since the local government election, and the people on the ground will want to hear more about what they're going to be doing for them.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Fisher?
So I'll start by asking a question. Do you want me to answer the question that you asked about the Prime Minister's presentation, or you want me to give an overview of the debate? Which of them you want me to do? Because I realize you asked about the Prime Minister's presentation, but the two previous speakers give an overview. So which you want? Which of them
Give
you
me an
want?
overview of the presentation.
All right. So I think the budget debate so far is good in some parts, low in some parts, and stuff. I think the Minister of Finance give us a pretty good overview in terms of where the country is fiscally and stuff, and I think he was very responsible in his presentation in terms of the things that they are going to do or plan to do and stuff. Even the point of the raising of the threshold, moving from 1.5 to 1.7, and going into the detail in terms of why they have to go to that amount now and maybe at a later date increase again. I think it was detailed. I was disappointed when I listened to the opposition spokesman on finance. He did not bring anything to the table as far as I'm concerned. All right. When I listened to the opposition leader also, he made some good points. I was really listening to hear about the moving the threshold to 3 million and how it was going to be funded. That was not addressed. And based on what was said on the campaign trail, I was looking forward to campaign trail. I was looking forward to hear that. The walkout was very unfortunate and stuff. I think that the Prime Minister and the government members fall to the optics and stuff. And I think in a debate, you're going to get licked and you should sit and take your lick because you're going to get a chance to come back and bowl your ball and stuff. So if ball bowl at you, either you defend or something, but yeah. So when you get your chance at the wicket, then you go and bowl your bounce at one, whatever, and all that. So I think the walkout was pretty unfortunate and stuff. When it comes on to the Prime Minister's presentation, again, apart from the little optics at the beginning of his presentation, I think it was also a very balanced presentation. And I say this in the context that, gentlemen, that I think that where we're coming from as a country to where we are now, and I remember the days working at the GIS. I remember after a budget presentation, they're drawing panels and stuff to come to tell me why they have to raise this tax and do this tax and whatever and all of those things. So yes, we're in a better fiscal space right about now. And I don't think that we should be irresponsible in terms of where we are and stuff. I think we need to be responsible in terms of with our spending and stuff. So overall, I could consider the Prime Minister budget as an election budget in terms of what he proposed, they're proposing to give away and stuff and all of that. Yes, but at the same time, I think they're still being responsible. So overall, I said that the entire budget debate so far, I would give it a 5 out of 10. That's my view.
Thank you. Mr. French.
Yeah, good night. I'm here. My signal is not very good. Good night, everyone.
Okay.
My signal is not very good. I'm on my way from NEC. Good night again. You hearing me, right?
Yeah, yes, I'm here now. I'm asking you for your reaction on the budget presentation.
Thank you very much. Before I go into that, I must say that I am very happy with the budget presentation. I think it was a very balanced presentation. I must say that. I think the walkout was very unfortunate and I must say that I go into that, I must commend the speakers before me. I call you speakers. Sir Hilton, Sir Owen, and I just heard Sir Anthony. Yeah, it is pretty much the echo and the sentiment of the Jamaican people as it relates to, the entire budget. But for being here and being so close to the politics and having a bit of understanding and knowledge about what was presented some years ago, what was spoke about in the campaign by the PNP, it's a repetition. The one of the things that we notice is Comrade Leader, Comrade Mark Golden's campaigning and going across since last year in our conference season. You have spoken to a lot of these things, and we can date back some of these things that we heard in the budget, not from Comrade Mark Golden, of course, because he was on a different note in terms of accountability. And I want to touch a little bit on that before I do end my presentation here. Most of what the Prime Minister presented, and I want to really go into the Prime Minister's presentation. Most of what he presented was what we have been talking about all along. I remember them presenting about the duty, the threshold on the importation from $500 to $1,000 US. We have been talking about guarantor. No need for guarantor. As a matter of fact, the information is more than that, and we are pretty sure that if they hear it, they're going to be saying the same thing, because there's something about affording and there's something about guarantor that's completely different. Because you're saying here you can get the loan same way, just that you don't need a guarantor. But what is going to be there? Because there's something that is in it that is going to hook these persons that are trying to apply for the loan. Because yes, you can get it, but what is there? So the question must be asked. We have said it, that we believe that a lot of students wanting to access education, tertiary education, should be going through the whole thing of having a guarantor because you want to try to secure your payment, of which is correct. But there's a way that has been discussed by the party of how it's going to be approached. So students don't think, because PNP is the party that spoke about education and the access to education. Now, I want to touch a little bit on our Comrade Leader's presentation. One ought to be very, very careful of what it means when the opposition is presenting in the budget debate. It is very, very important. And it was obvious that every single thing that we mentioned in our own campaigning and presentation across Jamaica, it was what was said in the budget. There was nothing of the government to talk about in the budget that they came up with. Every single thing. I can go back to where, because I visited almost all the constituency conferences. I've been in all the NECs. We have spoken at all the levels, region level, constituency level, region level. And we spoke about the same thing. Just that when you're sharing it with the Jamaican people, because they're always asking, what is it that the PNP is coming with? Now, when we are in opposition and we say what we are coming with, the Labour take it and run with it and do what they want to do with it, and it makes it look like, oh, and so we have to be going back to where we have been sharing information from a long time that this is what we are saying. And it's not a good thing, because when we do not understand politics, and I cannot, we cannot take the blame for not politically educating our people as it relates to, what do we present and what we don't present, and what is it that, so we're supposed to go back and say, when we were in government, this is what we did. No, we hear that a lot of people not buying that, because you know what, we need to know what you're coming to the table with. We have a different analogy for that. So what we're supposed to be doing is going into our little communities, our clusters, and our, different groups, and doing political education, teaching our people and reminding our people, because our people are not going to be running us when we are saying, we're reminding them of what we used to do or what we proposed when we were in government and what we were doing, some of the things that we are benefiting now. Some people don't want to hear about that. I don't know how I can appreciate a building, a high-rise building, without appreciating the foundation, and we need to return to that. Comrade Mark Golding was presenting to Jamaica one of the reasons why we're not able to achieve what was set out by the government of Jamaica, in this case, the Jamaica Labour Party, because of what has been happening. We have said what we would do if we were, how we would do it. They have taken some of it, and we have to share, of course. But the budget is not supposed to be, oh, what is it that the PMP came with? No, the PMP is the opposition, so we are supposed to look through the budget that the Minister of Finance presented and say, no, this can't make no sense. Go back and say, this, you have said this 2000, you have said this 2020, we have not seen this materialize. So it must be that we are educated so as to know what's supposed to be coming in the budget. So I appreciate Julian Robinson's presentation. Yeah, there's a whole heap more that could have been added to it, but time would have failed us. Time would have failed us to mention everything. So Comrade Mark Golding was kind of saying, you know what? Yeah. Comrade Mark Golding was saying, you know what? This is where we are. And so he was going down the road to say, you can't, today we talk about it in NEC, and it's something that can be shared in media. Bruce Golding brought something to Parliament to say, you know what, for transparency, we're going to have the committees and we have the opposition members chairing these committees for transparency. Was that a bad thing? No, that was for the Jamaican people. And so when the Jamaican Labour Party won in 2020, they rolled back everything. There are lots of there's a lot of committees in Parliament, a lot of committees in Parliament. And if we cheer them, we cheer a lot. If we cheer for them, we cheer a lot.
Okay, Mr. Frank, we will come back to that, okay? Because I want to get Mr. Smith, my producer, I want to get his take on the presentation. So we will come back to you on that road, okay? Tony? Mr. Smith? Can you hear me? I need to unmute your mic. Tony? All right, I'm not hearing him. Mr. Speed?
Yeah.
Many people are saying it is bad.
Can you hear
It's
me?
a bad move by the government to. Okay, here's Tony.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, can I have your take on the presentation, please?
When you look at a budget, what do you mean when you say a budget? You're making provision for a financial year, or how you're going to earn money and how you're going to spend money. I see where Andrew Holness presentation is about building and caring economy for you. I really wonder who he's referring to, because I don't know if it's the average Jamaican person. He's building and caring and providing a caring economy. When you look at the minimum wage, and I'm going to look at that as one example. What he did was say, oh, I'm the first government that has, increased the minimum wage over X dollars to Y dollars. What he has done is play gimmicks with people, so to speak, right? Because this budget was crafted for election. So you move the minimum wage from $13,000 as it relates to like security guards to $15,000. Gentlemen, $15,000. How much US is that?
About 95.
A week. Huh?
About 95.
No, roughly 100 US dollars.
Roughly.
Right? And you're working a 5-day work week. So you're earning $20 a day. Is that a government that is caring, building a caring economy for you, right? You put on a $2,000 for, let's say, the security guards, right? I don't live in Jamaica, but I feel it for my Jamaican brothers and sisters who are earning $15,000 a month. That certainly is not caring, because 20 US dollars a day, I don't know how much that can provide for you as a Jamaican. I think things like rent, things like transportation, things like food, and other basics, certainly $20 can't go a far way. Right? I don't think one could provide for a family of 3 on an income of 20 US dollars a day when everything is pegged to the US dollar. So who is Andrew Holness fooling? You come and you spend what, 5 hours of just talking. And when you really look down to it, the Jamaican woman or man is not benefiting. We don't care about those people's lives, right? So I'm saying, Andrew, we seriously have to show that we care. You come and you talk about housing solutions. Yes, the greatest pride to a man, apart from being a father or a mother, is the ability to live in a decent house. How can you live in a decent house when you're earning $100 a week, the equivalent of $100 a week, right? 400 US dollars a month. You can't live in a dignified house. You can't pay a mortgage, right? You find a lot of people who are falling through the cracks. He comes and he says that, you know, our unemployment, Jamaica, our unemployment levels now is at record low. In other words, more Jamaicans are earning a living. Doing what? We find a lot of people off the labor market because they can't survive on that, so might as well them stay home. Right? Is this a government that is caring? What is it for the youngsters? Saying that you're going to people come to art for training, and when you graduate, you give them a grant of $50,000 to buy tools of a trade. $50,000 is little or nothing to encourage people to come out and you know, and go to school. All right. I'm saying that the theme of building a caring economy for you, I don't know which economy. All right. And I think we really need to look into what this budget has. Who is it? You find the budget is saying that they're making provisions whereby the duties as it relates to food imports, they're going to waive that. All right? What is going to happen to the local farmers? That's going to destroy agriculture, you know? Because how can our farmers compete when in America you're probably buying potatoes for little or nothing, and you dump it into Jamaica? Jamaica is going to be a dumping ground for all types of produce. So you're now destroying a sector. Right? Once a farmer leave the sector, it's very difficult for them to come back. right? So I'm just tapping in on two situations. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Mr. Myrie, Colin. I don't know what others have to say, and I'm just touching on that for now.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, you have your hand raised?
Yes, because I really want to respond to Tony, because I take some, what's the word? I am not in agreement with some of the statement that he has made. Let's take on the minimum wage first, and how Tony has framed it with respect. That minimum wage is what it is called. Minimum. It's the minimum that somebody's supposed to pay an employee. In the state that I am living in right now, the minimum wage is $13 per hour and stuff. However, we have to take other things into consideration when we are going to say the minimum wage should be more than $100 per week. Because when you think about a journalist, and let me use my field for example, a journalist who has a child. Let me think about a journalist who has a child that you are going to pay somebody to come and to take care of while you are at work, working long hours and stuff. The salary that a Jamaican journalist gets are earned per month. When you minus $60,000 out of that to pay the helper to come to your house to keep your child for the week, and then you have to pay rent, maybe a car loan or something, it's almost impossible. So we have to think about those persons who are paying the other people, these people, the minimum wage to work and stuff. So we cannot just get up and say, oh, we can increase the minimum wage to $30,000, because can the middle class persons, the persons in the middle, can they afford to pay their gardeners, their household helpers and stuff that $30,000 per week for minimum wage? That is something that has to be taken into consideration and stuff. There's another point that I want to make that is slipping me now, but as the conversation goes, I will come back to that. But that is one of the things that jumped out at me. Oh, all right, since we're here, then the other thing that I want to correct that I said when Tony said what is it in it for the youth. If I was somebody in Jamaica now as a youngster, don't have a job or anything, and I am being given $15,000 per week towards transportation to go to Heart, and another $13,000 towards lunch to go to Heart to get a skill. Come on, I think that was a good move in terms of giving back to the youngsters. And we need to call out some things that when it's good, that is good. And I think that was a good move. I mean, I would take up that if I don't have a skill, instead of sitting at home and rubbing up my hand and say, boy, I can't reach a art to learn a skill because I can't afford transportation. I don't have the lunch money or whatsoever. You are given now money to pay your fare, and you're also given money to pay your lunch. And if you continue through the program, no, and you get a level 4 certificate, you're also being given a grant towards buying some tool. And yes, we agree, so $50,000 is not much, but it's a start. We have to start somewhere. So I disagree with those 2 points, my friend Tony. I think that we have to look at it in context.
Anthony, I just want to ask a question. Did you say that these people will get like $15,000 to go to art? with an additional 13,000
Yes,
for lunch.
yes.
Oh,
$15,000 for bus fare, and $13,000 per week for lunch.
So they're getting $28,000, you said, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Mr. Dennis? All right, I'm gonna move on, a little bit.
I didn't know. My mic wasn't on. Every time you call to me, I have to look to see that my mic needs to be unmuted.
May
All right.
Okay, sorry.
So can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm saying that, we mention all these allocations, taxpayers' money, with legislators who insist on believing that they are not servants, they are masters, even though when they come to be elected, they have the mind of the servant, right? And they try to, but I notice, since we've gotten to the stage where for the last 30 years, we have governments that have no mandate, that only party faithfuls are voting in elections. So, it's about mobilizing base and minimizing betrayal. And they don't seem to care about bringing back the majority of the electors into the process because it benefits them. I mean, the same parties that would put garrisons on the fringes of suburbs and so on. They don't want intelligent people to get involved in the process of democracy and, building a better society that we desire to have. Heart trust has become a monumental waste. So we're blaming the children for the opportunities that are available to them that they are not getting. We're going to remove guarantors for student loans, and we're going to allocate an extra how many hundred millions of dollars for student loans. We have a bad record of repayment and record of recovery. We don't even have a good track record of those who graduate, where they go. A lot of them migrate. Some who are forced to, because of the programs they go abroad on, are forced to always get waivers because I was in a place where those waiver letters had to be processed at some point. They don't escape because they always have to show that they are honoring their obligation. But Heart Trust, as I said, we have created institutions that are cash rich because how they are funded is by involuntary contribution of the workers. So Heart Trust, you as an employer, you either pay over money or you hire a so-called trainee, which is really a way of getting cheap labor because you're paying this trainee next to nothing and you're giving them the same role and work like a contract worker that a regular worker who gets benefits does. So you pack up the place with a lot of these almost zero paid persons and call them trainees and so on. But it's funded. Heart Trust is funded and is awash with cash. I made certain recommendations, especially when the leadership just changed to the new CEO. Is there about 2 years now. I said, let me tell you something. We had a good community college system. There were, as we rationalize our school system, there were still a lot of all age schools that stopped at grade 9, and students had to try to pass the grade 9 achievement test to go into a regular high school, or their schooling ended at 14, 15 years old. And then you had the shift school system and so on, which shortchanged them in terms of their education. You had schools that only went up to fifth form, sixth form was a luxury. All right. You have now extended school attendance, high school attendance to 18, making sixth forms mandatory in all schools. But you have community colleges that would focus on vocational skills, that would focus on, streaming persons into professions, nursing and so on. And you want to create heart academies because you have the money to do it, which you don't need to do. So you rationalize, right? Close the heart academies, properly fund the community college system, ensure there are community colleges in every parish, right? And then focus on the workforce development aspect that Heart Trust also deals with, right? Nobody takes that up. They ignore it because you can take the money and do whatever you want with it. That Heart Trust has the same way you do with NHD, and education still suffers, and we're still graduating illiterate people from high schools, so they become, conveyors of dumbness. I choose to put it like that, like a factory, putting out a lot of people who are not functionally literate. All right. But you have money that is available to them for what? They're not prepared for the programs that Heart is offering, that you're trying to stream them into. After so many years of high school, they have no foundation for them to be able to grasp the skills that Heart would provide them with. So they are distracted. They're going to go there, they're going to idle. They're not going to appreciate the value of the opportunity that you present them. So it is more than the money that is made available, right? We're not being intelligent, logical. And the people who are doing this, are people who, right, have created these PhDs of nothing, right? They just do dissertation and, all of a sudden they have a PhD in something or the other. And to be relevant, they create all kinds of confusion and prefer all kinds of solutions that are not solutions, right? But it finds its way into the budget where we have money to waste, where nobody's holding us accountable, nobody is intelligent enough to understand that we're wasting the money by the way we're allocating it. And so it persists, right? And those of us who can call it out, we are pariahs. All right, whether we're journalists or analysts, economists, whatever, we are pariahs in the society because we know what's been happening. We know, I did monumental research to write the history of the oldest high school, Jamaica College, and it um, falls in with the history of education in Jamaica, right? And I'm telling you this underfunding thing from 1957, right? When we opened access to high school education, to the poorer classes. We have not developed, just like with hospitals for health, we have not developed the infrastructure of the school sufficiently to accommodate it up until now. All right? Because we have to keep people poor and dependent and desperate and dumb in order to have the political advantage that we require to hold on to power, to gain and hold power, right? And, it would be beneath my dignity to speak for any political leadership that is involved in that sort of behavior and practice. Way below my dignity to do it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speed, you want to weigh in on this as a former JTA president?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One is that stipends have always been given to heart program people, the people who attend the heart program, the classes and so on. Stipends have always been given since its inception, really. Because the truth is, when I just left school, I enrolled because I knew that I would get a little stipend. And I wasn't working on that kind of thing before. And I enrolled just for a little period of time anyway. Secondly, the minimum wage thing is much to do about nothing. The threshold that they move, much to do about nothing either. When you look at the minimum wage, for one, it's not the government, it's not going to come from the government's coffers to actually give that minimum wage to the workers. So they could put it at any figure they want to put it at. But when you dissect the figure that is put there, you're looking at roughly $300 per day increase. Now, what can $300 buy in a supermarket? I don't know. A bread is like nearly $600. When you go to Jamaica and you walk into those supermarkets and those stores, the things that you cannot do without are the most expensive things. So that for me is just fanfare. The next thing about the threshold that they move from 1.5 to 1.7. Most teachers, and I know about the teachers now because I was directly involved with them. Most teachers will get a paltry, maybe $2,500 more per month. Break that down is about $100 per day. Yeah? Think about it. You're talking about people, and at a time when there was this massive learning loss that took place during COVID. We are not hearing anything coming out of the budget on what they are going to spend to help those children recover. Remember, it's like 2 years out of school for many of these kids, and they still can't find some of them. We are not hearing anything coming out of the budget about how they are going to find some of those kids and put them back into the mainstream, and what kind of specialists we are going to have back in Jamaica to be able to help these kids out so that they can improve academically. When you look at the massive migration of teachers, the Minister of Finance has not outlined any kind of program that is going to serve to hold some of our best and brightest and most experienced teachers back there in Jamaica. So as far as I am concerned, it's much to do about nothing. Pointing to some figures and making it sound good, that's fine, because it's politics and you're playing politics. But in the end, who is going to suffer? And that is what I want to just say about that part of it. But I agree with the speaker. I can't remember his name now, who said that he was at NEC today. I can't remember his name. You can remind me.
French.
Parchment.
It's a French. I agree with him 100% that the opposition is not there to present its manifesto at a budget debate. That's not the place for it. Your manifesto must come at for a different occasion, but not for the budget debate. You are there to look at what is presented to you and to critique it. And I didn't say criticize, but to critique it, to be constructive, looking at it, but not criticizing it to say everything is bad. But at the same time, that's not the place for the opposition to come up and come forward and say, these are the solutions to all of the problems, and this is what we would do. That's not the place for it. And as a matter of fact, the opposition would not know either all of the resources that are available to the government to know that they could do certain things if and when they form the government, which is going to take time as well. So that there's uncertainty surrounding all of that too. So I agree with Mr. French where that is concerned. And I would love us to be able to hold our leaders more accountable. I think the walkout of Parliament.
That's the question I was going to ask you, you know?
It was uncalled for. So you stand up as a man, you stand up, and you cannot fight a battle if you are not in the battle. So to walk away from it would not solve the situation. One of the things that they can't say though, or nobody at all on this platform or elsewhere can say, is that the opposition leader spoke any lies in what he said. All of what he said were factual.
I beg to defend that, Mr. Speed.
All right, hold on there, Anthony. Make it finish because...
No, I'm going to say it again. And before the week ended, there was another case where something went untoward again, where the report was sent back to the Auditor General's department. So he spoke no lies. Everything he spoke were factual.
Okay, Anthony, you wanted to talk. So I wanted to, as Mr. Speed has talked about what you think about the leader, the Prime Minister walking out, the Prime Minister or his government walking out of Parliament. What's your opinion on it? And I'm going to hear from all of you.
So while I totally disagree with the government walking out of Parliament, I also have issue with what Mr. Golden said or how he said it. And I'm going to be very frank right here that I have a daughter who I tell every day, every single morning when she goes to school, I have this conversation with her that my reason or your reason to go to school is to develop independence and stuff. You're not going to depend on anybody in this life. No man, nobody, not even your father or your mother and stuff. I think that in our head every day. So when the opposition leader is going to frame the argument in the sense that because the Speaker of the House have a spousal, listen, a spousal relationship with the Prime Minister, it makes her elevation to the chair of Speaker untenable. I think that was rude. I think that was rude.
Can I come in here on that?
Yes, Hilton.
They qualified when they realized that they put a bad foot forward. They qualified and said they supported the appointment or the elevation, but her action since betrayed the office, which is really nonsense too, because what they're saying is these reports that were not tabled and whatever shows that she is not fit. She was deputy speaker before, and they
for 3 years.
They knew that she would ascend to the position if the speaker, demitted. So it was understood why they would support her elevation when they did. So
Right.
the politicking and this is when I said the behavior reflected that they thought the house is their personal, you understand, little setting.
And that I can agree with.
The people's business, right? And until they get that out of their head, no constitutional reform, it seems, is going to let them get that out of their head, that the people are sovereign, not their legislators. Then, we won't see a change in the behavior. And because they are elected by party faithfuls with no mandate, when you can be going into an election, even though the manifesto they said they held on to was not relevant to the election at which it was presented, because that's a national manifesto for government, not local government. Even so, you can't be on the eve of an election and say you don't want the opposition, the government, to copy your programs. And when the government is
vice versa too.
When the government is implementing programs, if you are thinking in the interest of the country and the people, you would never let it come from your mouth that your ideas were stolen, because a lot of these programs have a long gestation. They can be in the works for 20, 30 years, which shouldn't be the case. The 4 hospitals that were announced that are going to be built could probably be on the drawing board 20, 30 years, but who cares? It's what the people need. You are against Portmore being a full parish because it doesn't have some of the infrastructure that it needs, that those who approve the development of Portmore to what it is today, from what it is coming from, never had the interests of the people sufficiently. All they were interested in voting. How can we populate this area to get votes? So what it takes to have a town, to have a city, they had no interest in that proper planning, urban planning. And now when this thing has burgeoned, they are still opposing the declaration of Portmore as a parish because they have no interest. People have to be going from Spanish Town Hospital, right, to get diagnostic imaging and stuff in Portmore at their own personal private expense in order to proceed with their treatment in the hospital at Spanish Town. And a lot of people are dying because of that. Portmore doesn't have its own hospital. And before they advocate for these things to be put in, for assurances to be given that these things are going to be instantly, budgeted for and proceeded with, they just oppose Portmore being a parish.
So just to finish my point, my friend, Mr. Speed, that one political gimmickry that the opposition leader put in that, it distracted from what I would have considered a good speech. And again, I'm going to use a cricketing term. He was batting, he was scoring runs. But then that gimmickry caused the walkout. What was dominating the media the following day?
That's an irresponsible statement you're making to say it caused the walkout. The walkout was not caused.
Well, all right. So
and there were options to the walkout. There's nobody said to them that they had to walk out because of what Mr. Golding said.
So
okay, let us play that speech, Mr. Anthony.
Mr. Golding spoke facts. One opinion.
Let me play that.
All right, so we disagree on that one. I can tell you, we disagree.
Listen, he went back and he corrected and he said what he said. He spoke. It's the wife, that's a spousal relationship in a sense happening. Yes, because it's wife and husband, so it's spouse. What is
and sorry, Owen, I don't mean to, excuse me if the moderator will allow me. It is a non-argument. It should not be raised because the foundation of governance in Jamaica, you see, I start out with the two cousins, Bustamante and Norman, being cited as founding fathers of the party. And there is something more embarrassing about that. And I would just say that Jamaica has no moral basis for prosecuting incest as a country. Jamaica has no moral basis for prosecuting incest as a country because they focus more on prosecuting non-blood relations for incest because they cannot prosecute certain blood relations. You okay? So when we are in that space, better behave yourself about husband and wife in the house and who is speaker. We better behave
one wrong does not make.
It's not two wrongs make a right, but if you go as far on the rule of law, which forces us to make a distinction between rule of justice and rule of law. You make laws for convenience. You make laws that maintain badmanship and donmanship and gangmanship because that is very critical and crucial to you holding state power. And then you can't morally prosecute incest, right? Then if you go that far, leave the husband and wife thing alone in the house because the basis, the heritage, the whatever for it is there, leave it alone and do the people's business. You're an elected representative, you're a servant, not a master, and get out of that mindset and give us a proper constitution because right now we have a British Act of Parliament as our constitution.
Colin, can I chip in?
Yeah, I was gonna call on you right now. Go ahead.
My take on this situation as it relates to the speaker and the prime minister.
Walking out.
I had done some research on the British House of Commons and the role of the speaker.
Careful how you go there. Careful how you go there.
Have you done research on the antecedents, the filial antecedents of our leaders, of our party leaders? You don't go as far as Britain when you have that right in your backyard.
I didn't interrupt you. I listened.
It's about interruption, Tony, but we're trying to establish something we have no basis to establish. Stop it.
Allow Tony to speak.
Allow me to speak. You don't hear from him often. So Tony is on the floor this evening.
Right. Tony, I want to respond to you after that, because I researched the British system also. So that's why I'm saying careful when you go there.
Whereby Anthony, the Speaker of the British House of Commons, once that person is elected, that person is devoid of political allegiance. Right? They have to put away their political association.
Including
they're not considered members
and they're not being challenged.
They're not considered members of any of the political party. Right?
Yes.
Now, the lady in question just so happened to be the wife of the Prime Minister. Yes, as I think it was you or Hilton had said that we knew that this appointment was coming due to the fact that Speaker Dalrymple had integrity issues. So she had to step aside. I tend to follow convention, but I also am one to set new boundaries. We know that this lady is the wife of the prime minister, right? So it would not be looking tidy. The speaker is the person in charge of our parliament. If a matter comes up, right, that she might have a vested interest in, or it involves her, if she don't allow it to be presented on the tables of the house, it cannot be entertained. Right? Take, for instance, the supposedly illicit 6. Whether the report is tabled or not, the opposition cannot even name or suggest, is it this person, is it that person, or name every one of them on the other side of the house. She would not entertain it. She would shut the microphones off, and if the person continue, she would eject them from the house.
She can't make the prime minister look bad.
She cannot make her husband look bad. If he's one of them.
It is
So what she'll do,
unfortunate that you
and
guys
the
are
PNP
speaking
recognize this, that they went with convention and say, yes,
she has integrity.
we going to vote for her. But as MP Paulwell said, that they had reservation, but they went with convention. And that was their mistake. And I'm sure Anthony would agree with me that it doesn't look good.
Whether I want to agree or not.
Right? Then
so that means then, Tony.
Hold on. Then, Anthony, maybe they should have looked at somebody else as speaker, but not she.
True.
Because we know how this lady operates.
She has integrity issues, and it is coming for now.
Right?
She has demonstrated it.
She is, I don't want to use the word, but this lady is not the poster child of what a good speaker should be. Now I hear the Women's Affairs Minister Babsy Grange saying and try to put a spin on it to say that is a woman's issue. It has nothing to do with a woman's issue. Right? And them coming with this US style now of this cancel culture that you can't say nothing about women. Everything them turn it into, okay, you are against women. You're this, you're that. Pardon my French, Mr. Myrie.
Nobody.
Them is not everything about gender issues. Since when you can't talk about a woman and her performance, right? Turn the table around. If the lady in question, the speaker, Mrs. Holness, was not the speaker, but she was the prime minister, and her husband happened to be the speaker, would Babsy Grange say anything different if the PNP had come forward and said we don't have no confidence in this person? She's been hypocritical, and it's time we call it out for what it is. If this lady is not acting in an independent manner, it's very difficult for her, right? But if you can't deal with the true role of what the speaker ought to be, step aside.
Can I respond? Can I respond, Tony?
Yeah, man.
All right. So first, let me respond from what you said about the British Parliament, because when we put in things on the table, we have to put the facts out there.
Mm.
In the British Parliament, once somebody become a speaker, they are divided of any party. So
right
stuff. So they have to resign from the party.
Yep.
The caveat to that is that that persons cannot be challenged in their seat in the next election. They cannot be challenged.
Yes.
So that is the protection that person gets. So let's not.
So what wrong with? I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, nothing is wrong with that.
Yeah.
So I am saying, if we're going to make that comparison, as much as we say we practice the Westminster system in Jamaica, there are a lot of things that is not in it, because our speaker is speaker, but you're still a member of the party. You still got your NECs or whatever, just the same. So you're the speaker who as the tradition is chosen from the government side and stuff. The other thing about it is that presidents, while not being the prime minister's wife or whatever, when we had the Pearce brothers in parliament and stuff, one was speaker, one was a member of the cabinet and stuff. Nobody questioned.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so therefore, then, my friend Tony, nothing is wrong with Juliet being the speaker, and with all the criticism that I have been hearing and stuff and things. How many reports? Every time the Integrity Commission send out a report, the same day it is in the media that they submit a report to Parliament. All right.
Hold on, Anthony. Guys, I wanna talk about that part of it, you know?
No.
Go there.
No, I'm not going to where you're going. All I'm trying to say is that why not deal with the issue that you have? Why not deal with that in the parliament? But when you're going to say that somebody, because she is a vice prime minister, she cannot sit in the chair of this as speaker, I think that is wrong, and it is sexist, and I call it as it is. In my opinion, I think it was sexist, because if you are going to say, oh, because I am the prime minister and my daughter, who is an elected representative in her own right, becomes the speaker of the house, she cannot be the speaker. And stuff. And because she's my daughter, she's
Tony Fisher, Tony Fisher, if this is an objective show, you are going further than you need to go to object to Tony Smith. Pass laws to prosecute incest as incest, then you can question whether the prime minister's wife can be speaker of the house. That's where I draw the line. Outside of that, side conduct. Outside of that, side conduct.
Or the prime minister's husband.
Outside of that, side conduct on the part of the speaker, because Parliament has rules. Side conduct on the part of the speaker that breaches the rules of Parliament that are pointed out in the Parliament when the breach occurs.
Thank you.
And are not addressed.
Thank you.
Don't go there.
All right.
I casually, cavalierly, glibly talk about she did this, she did that. So we have lost confidence in our Parliament proceeds by rules, right?
I defer to you, my
senior. You can't have a government of laws on the rule of laws going inside the Parliament where the laws are made, right? And behaving like that. And government means opposition and, you know, the executive that we have. You can't have them going inside the Parliament, because the people are learning from their conduct how Parliament is conducted, how their business is conducted. So let us stop being outside of it and pretending as if we don't know what the proper rules and procedures are, and know that they are not following it, but because we're being partisan, right? And because I don't want to know that this is just an extension of any partisan support that we give to one party or the other. We want to have an objective show. All right, let's have an objective show.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dennis. The issue of corruption, and I'm gonna throw this one to Mr. Smith. You know, seems to have been the issue that upset the government, you know, the most. But this morning, we see where the Integrity Commission, in a weird move, placed another in the Gleaner. asking for a JLP MP to report to their office because they have been trying to locate him. How damning is this for the whole this administration? You know, if at all any. I'll put it to Mr. Smith as I said it.
I didn't know this, right? This is news to me. This is breaking news, Colin. Right? That they had to go so far to make a public notice in one of our leading newspaper of it's like you put in the picture or information of a criminal wanted. Anybody see this person, tell him to report to such and such a police station by such and such a time. I'm sure that that was not an easy decision for the Integrity Commission to put that out there. Right? Because why is it that this person cannot be found? Right? It's obvious that that person have information that they really don't want to be drawn into an investigation. You run, but you can't hide. Right? So they put it out there to say John Tom is needed. Right? Now, is this a new way of getting people to comply, to come in? Maybe you have to go that extreme. Right? It is sad and shocking, but the Jamaican people need people with integrity. Right? And I'm sure by tomorrow that person will be reporting to the offices of the Integrity Commission because I don't think that their party leader, whether it be PNP or JLP, will feel comfortable having that situation there where the investigatory agency is not getting your corporation because the address that you have on file and what they have on file, you're not there or you're avoiding the process, the subpoena that them subpoenaing you. So all I would be doing as Integrity Commission is just Parliament convenes on Tuesday, where the finance minister is wrapping up his budget presentation. If you're a member of the JLP, I will be waiting out there. And I'll be making sure cameras are there to embarrass you. All right? Come on. You're a legislator and you're doing everything to go around the law. What says you? Just asking a question. Did they name the person?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And this is an opposition MP?
That's Robert Chin.
Government MP.
A government MP.
All right,
I'm
all right,
sure
all
the
right.
Prime
Watch
Minister
here now.
and leader of the JLP would have seen it.
Watch here
And he
now.
would be saying to that man, find your ass.
That gentleman has already conceded that he had outstanding matters with the commission and he is prepared to resolve those matters. But
he's prepared to what? Resign?
Hold on. He doesn't need to resign.
I'm just asking you, do you know what they're inquiring about?
Whatever they want information from him and they want to find him to get, he doesn't need to resign. We don't know what.
Do you know what they're investigating
my
him for?
response is now being made, Tony. We don't know, but they want him to report to them.
So you're saying that the gentleman don't have to resign because it seems as if you know.
Don't interrogate me about something that's not disclosed to the public. A notice came out that he needs to get in touch with the Integrity Commission. So when he does, we will know what for.
Right? Don't you think that is an extreme measure?
Hilton.
No, I'm responding. Why are you Hiltoning me? I'm responding and Tony's interrupting me. What are you Hiltoning me for? He must stop interrupting me. And let me continue my response.
Can I interrupt you?
No, I'm responding. Because I have more to say on the matter. He has already said he's going to make himself.
Respond.
He has already said he's going to make himself available. Hot on the heels of him saying so, right? Some farcical notices, because social media anarchy allows this, right? And we're playing political football with these commissions now that are more serious than they're being treated. Hot on the heels of that notice, the other party, or somebody who thinks they're helping the cause of the other party, inserts names of other legislators into a similar notice and start circulating it on social media, right? To give the impression that there are these others who are similarly, being, sought by the
However,
commission.
that
And
is
it's this
6.
sort of mischief, that is occurring on social media that we are tolerant of, that we, without checking the facts, because journalists fact check, but the regular man doesn't. We quickly grab onto it and we say, oh, yes, it is so. And with egg on our face, we don't apologize, we don't recant, we don't say, okay, you understand, we joined into this propaganda thing or whatever. We just let it be. But let me tell you something. There are so many more commissions of parliament now than existed a few years ago that were established to address and resolve some serious problems in governance. And the very legislators who established them are the first to attack them fiercely if the leadership of these commissions are exuberant enough, right, in how they discharge their duties, right? Namely, the Integrity Commission or INDECOM before it. If there's, and you hardly hear about the Public Defender's Office anymore, if there is exuberant enough to right the wrongs they were established to right, and it poses a threat to how power, political power, is secured and maintained in this country. The political factors, the legislators who are the first to attack them and attack them fiercely, and it's easy to get their supporters to join in. There's nothing wrong with the Integrity Commission as established. There's nothing wrong with INDECOM. There's nothing wrong with the Auditor General's office. There's nothing wrong with the Public Defender's office. Something is wrong in the legislature. And what is wrong is that they have kept the electors out of the process on purpose, and they are now being elected without mandate by their party supporters who come and spew nonsense in forums like these, right?
And there you have it, Hilton. I agree with you to a great extent, but I don't agree with you to some extent.
It's attacking the Prime Minister's wife as
We have
speaker the way you
seen
are doing.
where the pollsters have indicated that the politicians are the number one people associated with corruption, followed by the police. We never think the day that the police would be further down the ladder now and the politician go up, right? Because you would figure that these people who are politicians are people of integrity. But it goes to show that these people here are no better than probably the guy who is holding up people on the streets of Jamaica at nighttime or daytime. Them some bare face now, them never not do it at night, them a do it day.
All right.
Right?
Thank you. Anthony.
Tony,
Mr. Speed has been quiet for a while. I don't know if he's still there. I noticed that he stepped away.
He's very much there. He's listening.
He's listening.
I just want to say one thing, because and this is Hilton, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I was just trying to say that the gentleman that the Gleaner named also sent out a press release saying that I have been in touch with the Integrity Commission over the last few months in relation to requested financial statements for companies which I am a director. There have not yet been completed by the company's accountant, and as a result are still outstanding. He said, I apologize for not providing an update to the commissioner sooner. I will be attending the office of the Integrity of Commission on Monday, March 25th, 2024 to have the matter resolved. So just to say that the named person as himself has put out a press release, one, acknowledging that he has unfinished business with the IC, and he will be attending tomorrow to address it. So that's all I wanted to say, Hilton. I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
Anthony, Jamie Foxx had a big song out. Blame it on the alcohol. Right? So this guy.
What you saying about Mr. Meadows?
He'll be coming on Colin's show pretty soon.
He has been here before. He has been here.
Jamie Foxx said, blame it on the alcohol.
Let's move on.
And Mr. Chin, before we move on, Colin, and Mr. Chin is saying, blame it on his accountants.
Okay.
Right? Why? He can't get the necessary documents, the people, them. I'm sure they would have given him a reasonable amount of time, and he would know that you have to make filings by such and such a time. Them not running him down
really
for 2023.
Don't hear what Mr. Chin is saying. The frivolous regard that the legislators have for the Integrity Commission says a lot. The way they talk down to the commissioners, the way they think that the commissioners are subordinate to them, right? Having set this up by statutory, rules and so on, and the commissions can't function independently according to the law by which the commission is established. That should be of greater concern. We're trying to pick on individuals, right? Who the commission can't get this from or that from, or who, we think the report that is submitted lacks something or whatever the other. These commissions are not joke shops. Okay? What called for the need to establish them? They are not joke shops. And you as a member of the public, as one of the people served by that parliament, right, must have that greater sense of importance about it, that, you call for it to be respected in that manner or scrapped altogether, right? Because we are on the brink of anarchy and seem to love it. Okay, there are a lot of things about our political arrangement that must change. And if we are going into constitutional reform with this sort of behavior, right, which is a far cry from the behavior, even in the 70s, that we decried, there was more decorum. All right? More order, more decorum. Sometimes you don't appreciate these things until you see how we evolve. The 70s compared to now, right? The 70s was a decent period in our history compared to what's going on now.
But
not violence alone.
To what you're saying, Hilton, I'm saying if the Prime Minister break the rules, right?
What Prime Minister break what rules? All of them in there are breaking rules. What if what Prime Minister break? You're being partisan in that you are being partisan. You are being partisan. There is disorder and misconduct in the Parliament that needs to stop.
Say what you want to say.
Stop
I'm
being
saying
partisan,
that if
Tony.
the Prime Minister break the rules,
it is not.
I can't break it. That's all I'm saying. Problem Mr. Chin is saying.
We have a problem in our legislature that needs fixing. Stop being partisan and thinking it's
Hilton, you think they're going to fix
Tony,
it?
I want to hear, we have to move on now. I want to hear Anthony and Mr. Speed, opinion, on this move by the Integrity Commission. Anthony, you want to go on, Mr. Speed? Mr. Speed, go. You haven't here for a while.
Well, I don't have all the details. So, and I've seen many instances where, with a little bit more effort, institutions could have reached out and found people, but they instead went ahead and put people's names and pictures in newspapers. So I will remain uncommitted where this is concerned, because I don't have all the details, and I've seen it happen before. I've seen it many times before. Students loan, all of these places, they put people's pictures and names in the newspapers when people are easily accessible. And in fact, I would suppose that the the higher officials in the Jamaica Labour Party, if the Integrity Commission wants to find a single member of that party, could have maybe reached out to some of those high-ranking members and they would have found the person. So I'm not too sure.
Mr. Speed, the fact of the matter is that you got results. You got the man to say, I will come into the commission's office tomorrow and have discussions.
But
I'm sure the Integrity Commission is not that type of inflexible organization. They probably would have made several efforts. It's like a woman wants to serve her baby father with child support.
Yes,
and the man disappear every time.
Yeah, but Tony.
Right? So what you do? You put him in a newspaper and you get results.
Yeah, but I allowed you guys to speak for a long time, and all I am saying is that I don't have all the details, and I am not going to be judgmental on this one because I've seen precedent set where pictures have been posted when in fact the persons were not hiding.
And Colin, since you said you're asking myself and Mr. Speed, Mr. Speed, I concur with you. I concur with you on that one. I do have details and I will not disrespect the Integrity Commission. But I have to look also on the person whose information was placed in the paper that we don't know whether or not enough effort was put into contacting that person or whatever. So
there's a word
neutral on that one.
There's a word called tardy or tardiness. There's a flagrant disregard, as I said, for these parliamentary commissions, and compliance can relate to the disregard that people have for the authority of the commission, so that information that is requested is not provided, and the commission has to treat it as though these persons don't exist or they can't be found because notices go out, they are not responded to. It is not about locating them. I don't know that there's any provision to go and haul anybody before the commission to present what is required. You request it, it doesn't come, you assume the person didn't receive the notice because there's a flagrant disregard for the request. And therefore you put out a notice. If there's a provision in the law that establishes the commission, you put out a notice and treat it as though the person didn't receive it, you understand, wasn't where they should be when the notice was sent here, right? It's the same way we can't understand why the Auditor General's reports were returned to the Auditor General's office when they were sent to be tabled in the House. You know, is that the mistake of some lower level functionary who misunderstood an instruction and sent it back, right? Because it seems like, you understand, some act of contempt. And I don't think that that would have been the intention of the speaker, but it comes across that way. And the Auditor General, I was saying, should just hold a press conference and say in summary what it is that is in the report, and the fuller details can be presented when it is tabled in the House, you know, to stop the back and forth that, you know, it's becoming a political football about not being tabled as if the other side would have done differently in the same position. So, you know, it's a people's business, and until they start treating it that way, they are not sovereign, the people are sovereign. That's why they have to be elected. They must behave themselves.
I agree with you, Hilton,
100%. No, you don't agree because you support the slackness on one side. Sorry Hilton, to say that. We are friends still.
Hilton, I agree 100%. The same knife that stick goat must stick sheep. Right? And then we want a transparent government. We want a transparent legislator.
It's not transparency. You can't pass law to create commissions, right, that will improve governance and then have flagrant disregard for the work of the commissions. And when the people exuberantly discharge the functions, right, they are appointed to discharge. You're attacking them, and people supporting you and attacking them. Stop it, right? That's gangsterism and hooliganism. in a place that must set the standard for decorum in the society. Gangsters and hooligans.
That's not joke, Mr. T. But anyway, let us move on. I want to ask each of you, we now have a new commissioner of police. What has been your impression of the former commissioner now that he is out of office? And what are your thoughts or your expectations on the new one? Let me start with you, Mr. Hilton Dennis. I'm not waiting for you to calm down.
So I indicated, because again, people start to politicize the leadership of the police force. There was political interference for many years in the operations of the police force. All right. And we would see change of command at certain levels when parties changed, when governments changed. Okay. And you had name brand police and so on who were associated with different parties, and you see some remnant of that in their retirement and so on. You see where it was coming from. But the point of the matter is, right, the commissioner leads the force. The force is going through its transformation. We know the antecedent of the JCF. We know it goes all the way back to when Paul Bogle and George William Gordon were unjustly hanged for treason, right? We know the role that Maroons played in their capture. And we know that they were the foundation members of the JCF. And so a culture was established. And that culture perpetuated to the JCF being used to protect the gentry of the society against the common class of people, right? So that in a society of the rule of unjust laws over the rule of justice, right? You couldn't blame the JCF for how it executed its function. You couldn't even blame the judiciary for the judgments that it handed down because of the bad laws that, were used to adjudicate rights in the society, right? We're evolving, we're improving. Much has been done to professionalize the force, right? We have had leaders of the army who we know are trained a different way from the JCF, right? And can play any role in the society when the need arises. So we have had crossbreeding, right, between the JCF and the JDF. And, there are problems often when command is handed back to those who came up through the ranks. We're doing it again. We're handing back command to the rank and file of the JCF, right? And with the right cooperation. The crime problem that Jamaica has had is decades old and politically aligned. Okay? And the less political interference there is in its operations, is the more effective and successful the leadership will be in getting the results that are needed. Okay? So once we don't politicize the command of the force, and we allow the commissioner that has now been appointed to operate, freely and independently, right? And stop finding scapegoats within the leadership of the JCF for a situation that was not an overnight situation, then we'll get the results that we need. Anthony Anderson, Major Anthony Anderson was not a problem. And I do not think that, his successor will be a problem either. Okay, that's my view.
Anthony?
I don't know much about the Dr. Blake, the new commissioner. To be honest, I only heard about him when the search was being done and stuff. So all I know about him was what was published in the media in terms of his education and his time in the force and whatever. So from where I sat, I can just hope that he gets the job done and do it with balance, without fear, without favor to anybody whatsoever, and just do a good job for Jamaica. Because at the end of the day, that is what matters. Working for who you have sworn to serve and protect, which is the people of Jamaica. So that is it. I have nothing in terms of any background or whatever to about Mr. Blake.
All right, let me see if I can get this video in. No. Yeah, this is not coming up, but I'm gonna try to see if you can hear him, you know.
Yeah, hear me now. Can I? Go ahead.
No, hold on. Let me hear Kevin speak.
Rise to be the constitutional place, the chief principle of all Jamaicans. Mindful of the weight of this office requires me. My boss always remind me of the weight that this office comes with. But ladies and gentlemen, I am prepared and I'm ready to bring the best of my intellect, my training, my personal discipline, and emotional intelligence to lead this Jamaica Constabulary Force to be the next best edition of itself. I offer my heartfelt appreciation to you, Major General Anthony Anderson, our outgoing commissioner, for his highly capable leadership of the JCF over the past 6 years. As a global thought leader and a professional in local and international security matters, General Anderson has made an indelible mark on the JCF, catalyzing us into an era of unprecedented and irreversible modernization and transformation. Sir, your legacy is evident for all of us to see, and we laud your immense measure of your contribution. I will miss our intellectual banter, your personal swagger, and your impeccable sartorial dress, which always made you undeniable the center of the room.
I want to come with another one, you know, and I'm going to give my comment on it in a minute, you know. Let me see if it comes up.
And others woke up thinking the house was on fire. While not usually as spectacular, meteor storms do happen every 33.
I think it's important that since we're going to have this very seamless transition from one to the other, that I have a few things for ECP, soon to be CP, Dr. Kevin Blake. So here you have your rank and insignia, I think the authority over men and women of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Exercise that authority with wisdom, with tenacity, but also with compassion. Also, so that, you know, I don't want to go on, but no, as I say, we're setting precedent. So this is also a symbol of that. So here is the head. This is the process that I am passing to you. Just remember that there is a two things that the future of police unity. But the point is that you can see when commissioner has signed anything and that the commissioner's signature.
Audio is bad.
Finally, to hand this up in front, so this is what we stand on. Rule of law, respect.
Colin, we're not hearing, the audio is bad.
Okay, my bad. I don't know what's happening there.
We can move fast.
I don't know if it's the music they have in the background, you know, but if you are seeing that, if you are seeing the video clearly, you know, I do have a little issue, you know, with this ceremony, you know, because this to me is like a military thing, you know. We have never, or I have never read or seen one of these, one of these handovers, you know, or changing of the guard like this. You know, so I do have a little issue with it.
All
But
right.
I'm gonna read.
Clarification, host. What problem does the changeover pose, even if it is done military style? What problem does it pose to the running of the force to the succession of leadership and the conduct of the force under the new commissioner? What problem does this changeover have that will affect those things?
Well, the truth is, I am looking at it, you know, that the country or this government is moved, or I should say the prime minister, you know, is moving the country in the military, or I want to say, a police state. And this form of takeover, you know, it's leading.
Well, let me tell you something from an analyst point of view. From an analyst point of view, the nature of security threats that we now confront with the advent of social media, with the advent of smart technology, right? With the advent of advanced modes of transport, right? Many countries find that it is difficult to secure their borders. We have a gun for drugs problem with Haiti that I observed lately is being swept under the carpet, right? When we're trying to understand why we would join an intervention force, a country living in revolution for all its history, which is like 300 years of history. None of the leaders of the revolution that we cite and glorify have ever been able to hold on to power and consolidate power for any respectable period of time, regardless of what the reasons were, right? And the people now have been cultured to support criminal gangsters and warlords, right? To go at each other as a means of establishing that kind of country and society, which is just elusive and a fantasy, right? We face a kind of threat now, you see, that a paramilitary response, if you want to put it like that, or a full military response is required to address. So it is very timely that there is this cooperation between army and police, right, in the matter of national security. All right, so we can't live in a fantasy world. It is not unique to Jamaica. We have to understand the threat, internal and external, that is being confronted to understand why the organization of national security, it might be the way that it is.
I'm going to read something from Aristotle, you know, the new police commissioner. At his best, man is the noblest of all animals, separated from law and justice. He is the worst, Aristotle. The JLP, having so many instances in its reign of terror, separated itself from law and justice. And it must be stated that the law is made up of both spirit and letter. Okay, a new police commissioner, as I said, we have been chosen, you know, and very seamlessly, as you didn't hear any talk about it, the handover has begun. So all transitions of such a critical public office should be, but the choice must be the best for the prevailing circumstances. Our circumstances demand a commissioner who is seasoned in operational crime fighting and its management, and in so saying, Fitzbailey may have been the best choice, or even Clifford Blake, you know. The rise of the influence of General Anthony Anderson and his blessings of his successor is cause for concern. I hear you talk about the that we needed, you know, paramilitary stuff, you know, but he, after being the chief defense security of the JDF, was appointed defense advisor, a mind that would advise the PM on crime fighting and the tools at his disposal, right? Namely the JDCF and the JDF.
I can identify 4 chiefs of staff who have transitioned into roles in the government after they ended their tenure with the JDF, starting with Colonel Macmillan. Hold on. Starting with Colonel Macmillan, starting with Major General Saunders, continuing with Saunders, continuing with Rear Admiral Audley Lewin, and now Major General Anderson. So there is precedent and purpose. And to pick on one is disingenuous. All right. Then you talk about the reign of terror of the incumbent government. If you call what the situation that obtains in Jamaica a reign of terror, what do you call Haiti? What do you call the situation in Haiti? So when we use terms like those, right, I'm part of this program and I'm treating it as an objective discussion that we're having. You're the host and you speak about the government's reign of terror. Where is that coming from? How do you explain and justify saying that Jamaicans live under a reign of terror under the incumbent government? What is that about?
I endorse that comment, Hilton.
Well, we have seen a lot of videos.
We have reign of terror, sir. Reign of terror.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of videos. Even the last one, I'm gonna try to look for it, where these soldiers went into an area and they were like boxing the lady.
That is something we have seen for 50 years. From the 70s.
I haven't seen it.
Well, if we start with Coral Gardens from 1963 till now, that is a behavior that we have seen by elements of the security forces, sometimes acting, right, extrajudicially and brought to book on the rule of law for their conduct. That is something we have seen for decades in this country. So we can't use isolated incidents and acts to call a reign of terror. Jamaicans do not live under a reign of terror. I have actually seen greater police presence in Jamaica. I have seen better coverage. I have seen better control, right? And it may be frustrating for the actual elements who want the reign because it's really the criminals who create the terror, not the security forces. And anytime we start to describe the work that the security forces and the government do as reign of terror, when we have nothing akin to what happens in Haiti or other despotic states that we know about, anytime we start to describe it like that, we're actually giving cover to the criminal elements who need to be controlled.
Would you say that he was demoted? I mean, you know, he was chief advisor to the prime minister. Would you say he was?
No. I can't say whether demotion. There's no demotion. He was chief of staff of the army. He was advising on security, and then he there are a couple the other chief of staff, right, is now in the office of the prime minister, right? The other former chief of staff. So they have been positioning the leadership of the JDF in the transformation of the JCF, right? It has been the view that the discipline of the JDF, right, is a discipline that should be modeled by the JCF, okay? And so, the conduct and the recruitment of the officer corps of the JDF, I see a sense where they are trying to do some sort of cultural integration with the JCF, right, to transform it. So that is really, from my view, there is more operational collaboration between the two organizations and so on. That's where it's coming from. But take it seriously that the transnational crime threat, right, is more technology driven now and more serious, right? That conventional methods of response are no longer effective. And so this collaboration between army and police is not a Jamaican thing. It is a global thing.
But
so Colin, so as chief of defense staff and commissioner of police, they would have met with the leadership of any government or any government governing party, whether on a weekly, monthly basis, to give them updates, but also to provide advice.
That's what I was just gonna say. That Roland, he was chief advisor to the prime minister, and he leave and become police commissioner.
But that would be a choice of his. That would be a choice of his to
but I am saying
apply. Wait, let me finish.
Chief advisor post fill.
Yeah, but to become commissioner of police, that would be a choice of his.
An advisor is not an establishment position, so it doesn't need to be filled. An advisor is a discretionary position. Macmillan became Minister of National Security. As I said, Major General Saunders was akin to a permanent secretary in the National Security Ministry, right? You know, and the role that has been given now to the other former chief of staff, there are discretionary roles and there are establishment roles. Commissioner is a role in the establishment. The motion doesn't come in the conversation. He has already retired his commission with the JDF. He could have just gone on his way into some other profession or so on, into Kenny Benjamin's Guardsman group, as many of the officers of the JDF seems to do, right? But there was a role for him to play in the national.
And he chose to apply for the job. He chose to apply for the job, was interviewed by the commission that was set up and was given the job. So
Anthony, those two people were picked from 2017, Kevin Blake and Tingley. But anyway, so what's next?
I think it's bad to start to put a person's integrity into question without having facts and information to back that up, to say, okay, Anthony, this person is not qualified for the job because of XYZ. I think you should allow the person the same latitude that you would have given to anybody. Equal latitude, and if something happen now that you can question their integrity, then at that point you can come with it. But and this is one of the problems that I have, because in the name of politics we have tortured a lot of persons' integrity and put them into a bad spotlight in the name of politics, to say, oh, they are for this party or they're for that party. And their integrity is questioned unfairly. And I think that is something that we need to stop. It needs to be stopped.
I just wanted to know what's next on the horizon for General Anderson.
General Anderson is not a consideration. What you must understand is that there has been succession in the JCF. All right? General Anderson is not a consideration in anything unless we're really being political. Unless we're really being, let it wait and see if there's another role that he's given in the national structure. Don't anticipate it, don't predict it unless we're really big, because what we're trying to do, he has served his country. What he did in the JDF, the JCF, these are people who give national service. He has served his country. He has been retired, right? With a good record. We can't tarnish that by our opinions of how we got into the role and our opinion of what other roles. We cannot tarnish people like that. I am not into profiling, for sure. I am not into profiling. He has served his country.
Just like General Rocky Mead, you know.
You know what may be next for him? The Order of Jamaica. Maybe. I'm not saying he merits it. But since you're talking what's next for him, maybe when the National Honors the list is published Independence Day for the award to be given Heroes Day, he'll be getting the Order of Jamaica. Think on these things. Maybe that's what's next. Maybe that's what's next for Major General.
To say that though, I don't know what is next for Major Anderson. And if he thinks that he still has service in him and he's asked to serve in any capacity for Jamaica and stuff, just like, and I'm happy that my friend Mr. Speed come back up, because Mr. Speed was a former JTA president.
I never go anywhere. I
wasn't seeing your picture, but Mr. Speed was a former JTA
Is Tony
president.
Smith look like him take up him marbles and gone?
Yeah.
No,
Mr.
Because I
Speed
lick
was
him
a
marble
former
and it really
JTA
look like
president
him
I'm
gone.
and stuff.
very much listening.
Oh, then I don't see your
Mr. Speed,
microphone, so I think
I
I lick
don't
up
know
him
Mr.
where
marbles and
Speed,
Colin is
gone.
coming
would
from
not,
with
I lick
the
him nuts
JTA
out in the
president
ring.
give 2 years service. But if Mr. Speed, say for instance, Mr. Speed decided that he want to go enter politics or something to serve or whatever and stuff, we might not see the same political view or party or whatever and all those things. But my thing is that he is giving up himself for service. And once he can bring integrity to the job and to serve the people who he chooses to serve in a clean heart. Let me put it that way.
Okay, Anthony, you're on the phone. Let's let me ask you this, Anthony. If you were to suggest one thing, you know, to the new commissioner, what would you suggest he focus on?
Continue to build the JCF. Continue to change the image of that the JCF had as just as being a force, but make it into a service. Make it the place that the Jamaican public can build, can see as an organization that they can trust. Let it be an organization that everybody look up to and want to be a part of. Persons can call and give information without have to question whether or not these information are going to be leaked back to the public. Continue to build that service. Let it be a service to the Jamaican people. That is what I want to see.
Okay, Mr. Speedy.
Well, I would add to that to say we have to, and I'm happy that the new commissioner mentioned the term emotional intelligence, because too often.
Not emotional damage.
What was that?
Intelligence and not this new thing throwing around emotional damage.
No, he mentioned something about emotional intelligence, that he will use emotional intelligence, because that's how you operate as good leaders, because you have to lead from in front, and you can't be looking and sounding too ruffled too easily. So I'm happy that he used that term, but I would like to add to that social and emotional intelligence rather than just emotional intelligence, because the force and the brute force kind of operations won't work in today's day. The criminal organizations, they are very organized. It's and I heard one speaker before me said that some of these gangs are politically aligned. They are not politically aligned anymore to any extent. It's bigger than the politics now. It's bigger than the politicians now. Where they are, the scammers and so on. It's bigger than the ring. It's bigger than the politics. Out of the hands of the politicians, really. We're not saying they didn't cultivate and help to cultivate them, but at this stage, it is far. It's stretching past them now. So, in terms of technology, they have to move apace at looking at how they can use technology into first preventing crime and then solving as well.
So you let me tell you something. You see, gangs bigger than politics and bigger than politician. That again, right, is a mistake that we are making, because they understand who makes legislations. That when they are taken into custody and taken before the courts, it will be easier for them to be acquitted and released. The politicians have that role. The gangs don't have it yet. So they still are under that kind of control to be able to benefit from that kind of legislative approach. And we do not see the brute force policing again. What we see, right, is a police force, a security setup that's under siege now. So the criminals are better better equipped. But what is happening is that the country is spiraling into anarchy, similar to Haiti, right? And we think that these things happen overnight. Every town in Jamaica, right? You have disorder. You have unruly robot taxi operators parking and letting up at where they please, right? Creating congestion. Nobody wants to, obey the laws, obey the rules, maintain civility, maintain order. The parish councils, which are supposed to be better organized, no, because they are better resourced, or even less so. I went into Mandeville not long ago, and I was, having not seen that town for a couple of years, I was appalled. The one-way street, the congestion, the dilapidated structure. Mandeville was one of the most beautiful towns of Jamaica. It is a disgrace. No, right? And, every time the forces of law and order try to maintain law and order, they are set upon by hooligans in these towns, right? And when they have to respond, they are not trained, right? They are not trained to be held under siege and to be beaten up and challenged in the way that they are being challenged and attacked. So they are supposed to respond with appropriate force. Whether it is lethal or non-lethal, they are supposed to respond. There are other places where justice is adjudicated, where they can go to the courts. Police have high command and so on, but they're challenging the law enforcement in the streets, right? And then we talk about brutal policing. The police are being more restrained now than they had ever been. Extrajudicial killings are down, and the police are more professional and they're being restrained, and people are taking advantage of that instead of allowing the professionalization of the force to proceed and the transformation to proceed to get from force to service. People are taking advantage, right, of the gaps that are arising from the police trying to be more professional and restrained. And there's anarchy spiraling in our towns, and we are not paying attention. Okay, so we're using the same old rhetoric that we are groomed and trained to use from the time when those things existed. We have not transformed our minds.
Okay, Mr. Hilton, you talk about the towns and the traffic and all of those things. What would be your take if the government should get citizens or civilians, to do the traffic thing there, give tickets, issue tickets, and so forth, go on.
Municipal police. Municipal police is a form of getting citizens involved in enforcement.
Take it from them and let the police focus more on crime, because
you have had those. Okay. Look, district constables, the district constabulary. Let me speak. The district constabulary was an experiment like that, right? And I call it an experiment now. Municipal police. The tourism have what them call the tourism ones at TPD co-pays, right? So they go through the communities to prevent harassment of tourists and so on. You have all of these things, but they don't work in a society where the people's minds are willfully trained to be unruly, uncivil, disruptive, and spiraling into anarchy. They don't work, because all people need to do is misbehave, and then their political representative will come and say the same thing that's happening with children in schools now. They have rights. Okay, they have rights. They don't have responsibility. They don't need to have respect. They don't need to understand that society functions by, respecting other people and not violating other people's space and rights and problems. Right? They have rights, and it stops right there. So all of these things you're talking about, we're trying to professionalize our police force, and we're trying to get order. First of all, you have to plan a community's right. Okay? So like we talk about Portmore, we said you can't have unplanned development, rapid development, just building houses, create a dormitory community, as they used to call it. No other infrastructure, right, that complements that sort of development. And don't expect to have chaos and disorder eventually, which is what you're having. So in the towns and cities, that's the same thing that's going on, right? The municipal corporations is just about having the power, right? And going into the corporation meetings and talking nonsense and quarreling with one another, right? And wasting time and wasting resources and not really maintaining any semblance of order, not really cleaning up the towns. And, so this is what, it's not a people problem really in certain terms of deployment, right?
Yeah,
But
but
it's
what I'm
really the
saying that a
attitude of
lot of
leadership.
police is focusing a lot on the traffic. Most of what we see on the road is a traffic offense. Police
So
and
if you're going to fight a policeman with an M16 when he tells you to park in the right space, what you're going to do with a man who have nothing on him? Him come to give you a ticket. What you going to do to him? You rip him clothes off of him? You rip him clothes and beat him naked and send him to his house? If you're going to fight a policeman with an M16 or with a pistol at your head, right? If you're going to push him off because you know that when him shoot you, him don't have no rights like you, right? Who provoked him to shoot you, right? If you're doing that, what you going to say about a man who is
you will have the police patrolling and doing you will have more police fight crime.
That sort of deployment, you see, that is a civil society deployment you're advocating. When people are trained to behave themselves, right? People's minds are oriented a certain way now. If you have a nice urban development that you have approved, and while you approve it, the peripheral lands around that urban development, you have already organized some squatters to go and create communities on the periphery of those urban developments, right? You are already putting in people's minds to intimidate the people who are going into those developments and to be a nuisance to them instead of planning proper settlements for those people. And it just spirals, okay?
Irie,
And that's how we organize ourselves.
Okay, Mr. Smith. After Owen talk, I want to hear your take. What advice would you give to the new commissioner? If you were to.
All right, let him go. Let him go.
Yeah.
Let him speak.
Okay. Okay, Tony.
You go on.
Mr. Smith.
Fall asleep.
Gone.
Fall asleep. It's had a long day.
Okay, Owen, go ahead.
But your point is taken, Irie, because and the point has to be taken. There's clearly an overemphasis, if you ask me, and that's that whether it's perceived or it's real, but people believe that there's an overemphasis on over concentration on traffic matters, while the other matters are just left there up in the air. That point has to be taken.
Yep, okay, thank you. Tony, you here? Tony must have stepped away.
No, I'm very much here.
Yeah, I'm asking if you were to give the commissioner one advice, what would you want him to focus on?
My advice to him is get his officers to focus on customer care, customer relations. The police is not known to be one that is respectful to their clients, right? Which is the people. It's all about brute force. Hence, there's no comfort zone between the client/customer and the police. It's always about coming with aggression and disrespect. We got to change the image of the force whereby you can feel comfortable having a police as a peace officer and not one who is there to beat you up and abuse your rights. If he can focus on that, then I think we'll see greater respect and cooperation from citizens. In the state that I live in, one of the things that is said, if you see something, say something. And to a great extent, it works because if you see something, tell a police, communicate to the police, it will be acted on. But in Jamaica, there's no trust level. If I see something, by the time I leave out of the station, I'm dead.
Okay, thank you so much. So,
be fair, host, be fair. Tony himself declared he's been away 20 years. Others, wait a man. Yeah, you can talk and we can respond, you know. We can talk and respond. Well, I'm not possible.
we have gone about 2 hours.
I didn't
You guys
interrupt you.
want to stay a little bit longer?
I didn't interrupt him, host. Host, let's be fair. I didn't
Okay.
interrupt him. I'm responding to him. I'm responding. I didn't stop and interrupt him.
Yeah, there's no element of trust.
But I'm responding to you, Tony, and you don't hear my response yet.
No,
Stop
Elton,
anticipating.
I'm
Stop
saying I didn't finish.
Stop. No, you did finish. You did pause and I come in. Stop coming back in on me. You paused. You said what you're saying. Tony, I'm responding to what you said before.
Your floor. Go ahead. That's why I tend to listen.
No,
I don't say much, but it don't mean that I'm not here.
Listen to. If you're going to go there, somebody can do that too, and you know it may be appreciated. Right? If you speak and you stop and are responding, why are you going to come now because like I shouldn't respond to what you say?
Continue.
I'm contextualizing something. You said you've been away 20 years. Others of us have been away too. Maybe not as long, or we have gone back since. Okay? Give credit where it is due. I never thought I'd live to see the day, right? You and I have been living consciously in the 70s and so on, when name brand policing and killer police would be a thing of the past. But it's so now. That's a major advance because we live for so many years revering police by name, right? By brand, by style. And they could actually evolve, right? Into businessmen in, you know, promotion of entertainment events and so on, and actually boast of their effectiveness when they were police because of their name and the fear that it engendered. And we don't have that anymore because that didn't have any place in a professional police force. Okay? The level of recruit that is going into the police force now is also more highly trained, okay? More highly qualified, and therefore is possible, right? Because of the material that you're getting, it is possible to deploy them in a different way to get better results. And we're seeing that, okay? So we can't be stuck in a time, right? In a time tunnel and be talking about the JCF like it's the same JCF of the 70s, 80s, 90s. I know it is not the same JCF. And I know that the reform is nowhere near complete. But to encourage the process, we have to acknowledge the advances that have been made. And we have the benefit of social media that shows us, it is not farcical what we're seeing on social media, that shows us these advances. There are a lot of faults that we can still find. There are a lot of things that are still wrong. But we have to acknowledge the ones that are right, that we always thought were wrong, knew were wrong, and we've seen the effort to fix them and to change them. And I'm telling you, being away for 20 years, you may have missed a lot more than those who have not been away so long. Okay? But just use the example of the brand name killer police no longer being part of the structure. It's a major advance. No, we would more likely talk about their lack of control. And we say the criminal gangs have outgrown the politicians. Then isn't that a big problem? Because the politicians used to use name brand police as a buffer, right? So they used to polarize the force and use name brand police as a buffer between them and the Frankensteins that they created in terms of gang leaders and dons. Talks truth.
Thank you so much. We had wanted to touch on sports, you know, but I don't think we
Next time.
It's another time. So, you know, we have been way over time, you know, so you mind if I end it now?
I don't mind.
And everybody's getting ready. So I want to thank you all. You have been watching and listening to the Irie Myrie and Friends show. We thank you for joining us, and we thank our panelists. We know you have a choice in what you listen, and we thank you for choosing the show. You know, until you hear my voice again, this is Colin Irie Myrie on behalf of my co-host who is not here and my producer. I'm going to say goodbye and good night. Thank you all.
All the best. Thanks for having me on your show, sir.
You're welcome.
Respect, man.
Okay.